What's going on, everybody? My name is Rome Bailey. I work alongside Douglas Construction. I am a residential and commercial roofing contractor, and that's what I've been doing for a little over 5 years now. Today, I wanted to talk about why contractors don't always like doing repairs. This is something I come across time and time again where I talk to a homeowner and they're like, this contractor doesn't even want to do the repairs. Let me break it down for you. Let me give you a few behind the scenes. While this is not true across all contractors, because we certainly do repairs, I'm going to touch on a couple topics of why your contractor may not want to do a lot of repairs. So I'm going to give you 5 reasons. So the 5 topics I'm going to be discussing today is going to be general liability. Does it make sense to do the repair and how much liability the contractor is taking on by just doing that small repair? Repairability. Is the shingle past an age where it's feasible to even do a repair in that area? Or am I just going to cause more damage and not be able to put an extended warranty and put us both in a bad position? Minimums. A lot of minimums are going to vary depending on the overhead of the company, meaning how big the company is, how many vehicles they have. Code requirements, that's going to be a big one. If it's an older roof or something that wasn't done properly to begin with, I can't just do a spot repair in an area that may need an upgrade just overall in that area. Lastly is just going to be the money. Repairs are just a lot of the times not sustainable, and that's something I'll get into as well. So let's go ahead and kick it off with number 1, liability. So depending on where a repair is on a roof, a lot of the time it can't just be a couple shingle repair. For example, a valley is where 2 slopes meet on an inward angle. A valley is where you're going to get the most water flow coming off of a roof. And a lot of the time are installed before a period of time to where maybe leak barrier wasn't really in use. I run into this all the time, or they decided not to put a valley liner down because it wasn't always required on some of these older roofs. If you have a leak in the valley, depending on how that valley is put together, sometimes they're weaved. It's generally never a good idea to just repair a couple shingles in the valley. Even if you know where the nail's popping through, it's very obvious where the leak is coming from. Picking apart and trying to piece together a valley is just generally a bad idea. You have a lot of angles and a lot of shingles that are bending. A good solid repair means usually tearing up that entire valley. So if you're a homeowner thinking, oh, well, this should just be a few shingle repair, and you get very different quotes, keep in mind you are more than welcome to go that cheaper bid, but a lot of times it's going to give you a lot of headache. Or if it's a shingle that's damaged, it's right below the ridge cap or right underneath a ridge vent, that's a scenario where all that has to come up to do a proper repair. You don't want people cutting, lifting, and trying to piece it in there. So if you're getting very different quotes for a small repair, you may want to ask the question of how they're doing the install and why they're doing it that way. And that way, it'll take liability off of the contractor on the higher quotes because they're probably going to do a good job. Know that that repair that they're going to do is sustainable. We give a 1-year warranty on our repairs. We're going to do a good enough job to where we know that that's something we can put our name on that's going to last a period of time. 2 is just going to be general repairability. I've touched on this in a couple other videos. There's a good rule of thumb for me, at least from what I've seen, is your 3-tab asphalt shingles, once they hit that 12-year mark, it's going to be pretty tough to repair them. Architectural styles, probably close to that 15 to 18-year mark. Some are a little more pliable than others. But in general, once you reach a certain period of time through the lifespan of a shingle, it becomes very hard to repair without damaging other shingles around it. So yes, if it is in a certain age, we can certainly come out there and do a great repair for you. But if it's past a certain age, even if it's a small problem, a lot of times they're going to create a bigger one. So this is a conversation I have with all my homeowners. If it's a very old roof, that you may need to look into getting a new roof, especially if it's in a couple areas where I can't do a temporary repair. Minimums. So minimums is going to be the general cost that a company is going to come out to come and just do a repair. This is going to vary pretty greatly. This is going to generally depend on the size of the company. A couple other things this is going to depend on is who's doing the repair. If you're a bigger company, your overhead may be a little bit higher, but you have your own crews, you don't sub them out, so you can in-house this, and this is something where when you're doing a build in the area, you can slide by, it's not a big inconvenience, and you could drive down the cost a little bit. Some companies' minimums, because they don't do repairs all the time, they're going to be very high because they only have a guy that's going to charge a day rate that's going to come out there, and if you're not able to line a bunch up on a contractor standpoint, this is where you're going to get your, $1,500 minimums, your $2,000 minimums for even a really small job that seems crazy. But for that company, it's just not feasible, and there's no way for them to make money without driving up the cost. So if you're getting a few different quotes on something that's a very small repair, like a pipe boot that needs to be replaced or a small section of wood that's rotted underneath that you can tell is soft, that's generally when that's going to come into play. Next is going to be code requirements. So as I mentioned before, like let's say you have to do a valley repair and there's no valley liner. As a contractor, I can't put my name on that. It puts us at risk if we don't install something properly. So if we're doing a valley and we have to add valley liner, we can't do a small repair in that valley. We have to tear that whole valley up, add the valley liner, and then re-shingle that whole area. Or if we're doing like an addition, and let's say we need to put a new roof on it, and let's say the home doesn't have drip edge, which is a metal flashing that goes around the perimeter, it may look a little goofy, and I've seen it before. The rest of the roof doesn't have the drip edge, and if you look on the fascia boards on the side of a house, but we just installed a new section of roof, we have to bring it up to code. So this could also create aesthetic issues. So when this is something that you're adding to your home, this is a conversation I'm going to have with my homeowners as well. It's where, hey, we're going to have to add this. It's going to look a little bit different. Is this something you want us to go ahead and add to the rest of the home? Or is this if this is something you even really care about? My fifth point was going to be the money, but honestly, I touched on it pretty hard when it came to the minimums. The minimums, just to reiterate a little bit, is just going to be how the company's structured and set up to do the repair. So if they have somebody that can come out and do 5 or 6 repairs in a day, that's going to be able to drive down the cost, and it's going to be a much more sustainable way to operate that side of the business when you don't have things like that. Or if you're a one-man show, you may be able to drive it down a little bit, but where you get the crazy numbers, it's just because they probably don't have some kind of repair model. Biggest thing I want to leave you with is if you do get a repair, make sure you get the after photos. Unfortunately, I see this time and time again. Whenever a contractor does work in an area that a homeowner can't see on a day-to-day basis, this is where you're going to run into shortcuts, and this is where you're going to find a lot of issues later on down the road. So if you think I missed anything, please drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys.